Having added our shapes, we now want to use a connector to connect these shapes with lines. Up in your Home tab in the ribbon, you have a button in the Tools group called Connector, and the shortcut key is Ctrl+3. If I click the connector and move my mouse onto the page, my mouse looks like this. I basically move to the starting point and a red square appears. This is my starting point. I drag from this starting point across and down to a connection point in this shape, and I glue it to this connection point. So I'm going from connection point to connection point. And there's my connector. My connector tool is still on, so then I grab from this point, this connection point, across and down to this connection point, and I glue it just by letting my mouse go. And I've created connectors. What I'd like to do now is add some text to my connection points. So I'm going to put my pointer tool back on by clicking the pointer tool button or Ctrl+1, and then I want to click on my particular line, say here, and I want to type some text. So I simply type no. Immediately the text appears and it goes where it wants to. If I click on the no and grab the yellow diamond, I can move this text to where I want it to sit, and I want it to sit here. I'm going to add some text now to this line, so I click on this line and I type yes. I then click away and I click on the yes and use the yellow diamond to move the text to where I want it to be on this line, and I want it to be there. And I've basically created my connector points and I've added text to my connection points. I'd like to double click the name of this page, which is at the bottom here of my screen, and double click example and call this page admission and enter. I'm now going to add another page, so I click this button here to insert a page. I'd like to name this page emergency, so I double click page 2 and I type emergency and press enter. Now what I'd like to do with my page being in landscape, but if it wasn't in landscape, I'd simply go to the design tab in my ribbon and choose the orientation landscape, and then go back to the home tab in my ribbon. I'd now like to create the emergency admission discharge diagram. So I'm going to start with a text tool. So I click on the text tool in my home tab in the ribbon, and then I click on my page. And I'll add the text emergency admission / discharge. And then I click on my pointer tool. I'll then resize my text so it's the length of my page, and change the height of it and set it to maybe 18 points. And Arial. Now I'd like to add a decision shape, so I drag the decision shape to the middle of my page. I'll resize it a little bit and move it and add my text. I'll then add a process shape, so I drag this from my stencil and drop it on my page. I want it to be directly in line with the decision, so I move it until the line shows that I'm lined up. And that's about as good as I'll get it, and I might resize it and move it again until I'm happy that it's sitting alongside of my decision shape. And I'll add my code, my text I should say. Okay, what I'd like to do now is just click on the shape and just use my arrow keys just to nudge it up a little bit. The arrow keys are great for just nudging. What I'd like to do now is make a duplicate of this shape, so I click on it and I hit Ctrl+D and make a duplicate, and I move it over to this side. I can tell by the orange line that I'm roughly in line horizontally, and then I'll press the function key F2 to edit the shape. And I want to put charge code 35 and click away from the shape. I now need two more decision shapes, so I'll click on the one I've got so that I create shapes of the same height and the same width and everything looks consistent. And I'll go Ctrl+D twice. I'll put this one over here and line it up roughly with the orange line, and put this one over here and line it up with the orange line the best I can, and the horizontal orange line When I get the vertical and the horizontal orange lines, I know I'm vertically and horizontally in line with the other shapes. I'll click on this shape and press F2 to edit. And click away, click on this shape and press the function key F2. And looking at this text, I probably could have duplicated the earlier shape because it contains the same text. Now what I'd like to do is create a duplicate of this process shape, so I'll press Ctrl D. I'll move the shape into place using the orange line the best I can to get it vertically in place. This shape is actually a little bit taller, so I'm going to drag and resize the shape so it's about that high. I'll press F2 and I'll put the text. I'll then click away from the shape and I want to duplicate this shape so it's the same height and width. So I'll click on this shape and press Ctrl D and I'll put it over here and try and use the orange lines to get it horizontally and vertically in place. And then I'll press F2 and edit the text. And click away. So I've got my text and I've got my shapes. I'd like to choose all the text, so I'm going to lasso by dragging around and selecting all the shapes in this area. With all these multiple shapes selected, I'll then change the font using the font option in my Home tab in the ribbon to Arial. And I might increase the font size maybe to 10. Now I need to add my connectors, so I'll choose the connector tool in my tools group on the Home tab in my ribbon. I'll go from this connection point to this connection point, this connection point to this connection point, and from this connection point down to this connection point to this connection point, and this connection point to this connection point, and the last one over here. And I'll go back to my pointer tool. I'll then click on this line and I'll type no. And it's put it exactly where I want it. I'll click on this line and I'll put yes. I'll then click on this line, I'll click away first, and I'll click on this line here and I'll type yes. And I'll click lastly on this line here and type yes also. And basically I've created my diagram. If I zoom out a little bit, I can see how it's placed on the page. I can even use my pan and zoom window to just click around and pan and zoom where I want to. I could resize the little red rectangle and move it around if I wanted to pan and zoom a certain part of my diagram, such as that. So just bringing that back into your knowledge. So I'm just going to hit the minus so I can see better. If I want to move this shape and hold the shift and click this shape, I can use my down arrows to move them both down, so they're sort of balanced on the page. And notice my connector lines just automatically resize. I might click this shape, hold the shift key and click this shape and move these two down also. So we're sort of equidistant. Excellent. And I might save my file, so I'll just hit the save button on my quick access toolbar and I've created the emergency diagram.